reporter with KUTV. I cover all of Washington County, and I'm currently at the intersection of 400 East and 900 South in St. George. This is the designated location for a proposed underpass project that's designed to help alleviate east-west congestion throughout St. George. If you are familiar with the area, the way that St. George is urban planned is that I-15 goes right through the middle of town. That means that neighborhoods on the east and the west side of the city are divided by a major highway, and it can create a lot of congestion on the roads and limited access points for people to cross over and travel east to west within the city. Now, this underpass project was initially funded and approved in 2024, and the project was set to begin construction. However, that $87.6 million project has lost its funding. So here's how we lost that much money. So this project was initially funded by a Biden-era grant called the Connecting Communities and Neighborhood Grant Program. That grant was, like I said, approved and secured in 2024. And when the city applied for that grant, they included 149 pages of letters of support from people within the community. When I talk to people in town, one of their main concerns about congestion and travel in St. George is a limited access east-west. Let me give you a little bit of a visual to help you understand how I-15 divides our city. So behind me here, back there, that's Dixie High and Dixie Middle School. And then just over here is I-15. So if you are on the east side of I-15, it's quite difficult to get to school. You may be only 800 feet away, but you have to go all the way around to one of those east-west streets in order to connect and get to school on time. This underpass project, which would start right here on 400 East, 900 South, would create a connection point, helping to alleviate that congestion and letting people get more easily travel across I-15 and get between the east and the west side neighborhoods. Now, this project was going to cost a lot of money, $87.6 million. Like I mentioned, it was money secured through a Biden-era grant, the Connecting Neighborhoods and Communities Grant Program. And when the Big Beautiful Bill was passed, that program was cut. Funding from that program was cut. It's because the Big Beautiful Bill had rescinded funds for projects focused on equity and climate. And because of the designation of this grant, that money for this infrastructure program got swept up in those cuts. The funding is gone. We know that. It's a big amount of money to replace. The funding is gone, but the need for this infrastructure change still exists. I went to the city and I asked them, what happens from here? We still have this congestion problem. We have a growing city. People are concerned about traffic and how long it takes to get from one side of the town to the other. What do we do now that we've lost this money? Sean Guzman, who's the government affairs director with the city, told me that he is working directly with the Utah delegation, specifically Senator John Curtis and Representative Celeste Malloy, who notably voted for the Big Beautiful Bill, to help find a solution here. He said that the city is trying to work with UDOT and the Federal Highway Administration to find new sources of funding for this. There's additionally an I-15 widening project that's happening right now, and they're hoping that this work may be able to be folded into some of that. He tells me that this highway widening project is sort of the prime opportunity to also do this major construction on this underpass. In order to construct that underpass, they're going to have to raise I-15 and build new roads underneath it. So it is a massive undertaking. He warns that, if this widening project happens and these crossings aren't built, they may be losing their opportunity for potentially many years to then do this project. And he says with the continued growth within St. George, that congestion is only going to get worse, and the need for these crossings is going to become greater. And like I mentioned, this has been in the works for years. The funding was secured back in 2024, and now that we've lost it, they're kind of back at square one. I asked him if they have a timeline for when they hope new funding will be secured, and he says he really doesn't know. And he said there are other state funds that they're trying to tap into, but it will be very difficult to replace the large sum that this was going to cost, being $87.6 million. In terms of what's next, he says that they are cautiously optimistic and that he wants to continue to work with the entire federal delegation to really enumerate this issue. He said Senator John Curtis was in St. George last week, and he showed him this exact spot where you see Dixie High and Dixie Middle School right here, you see I-15 here, and you can realize that all those communities on the other side of the highway are totally cut off from their high school. He says that the city is going to keep pushing and that this is a setback, but he's hopeful that down the line they will be able to secure new funding, but he doesn't have a solid idea of what that will be yet. So essentially, this is a major loss of funds that was unexpected with the passage of the Big Beautiful Bill. He did say that they were hoping the cuts to these equity and climate programs would be revised out of the final version of the Big Beautiful Bill, but they were not. It was passed, and unfortunately that meant we here in St. George, a community that predominantly voted Republican during the last presidential election, lost funding for a major necessary project. Like he said, they're going to continue to work with the federal delegation to try to find new sources of funding for this, but this is still a crucial infrastructure project. And while the funding is gone, the need is still here as residents continue to voice concerns about congestion and traffic as our neighborhood continues to grow. Now, I will continue to update us on this project and the funding sources, and if there's any new information that comes out. But as of right now, like I said, Sean Guzman with the Office of Government Affairs is optimistic that they'll find new funding, but there's really no timeline or solid answers on what those resources will be.